Do you believe there's real power behind certain physical acts that shift outcomes in mysterious ways? Prepare to be astonished as we explore the shocking stories of Moses, who lifted his hands to invoke divine intervention, and Daniel, whose 21-day fast unleashed supernatural forces that still mystify people today. By the end of this video, you'll discover how tangible actions, like raising your hands in prayer or changing what you eat or when you eat, might just open the door to life-changing breakthroughs in the unseen realm. Have you ever wondered if there's more to our world than what we can see and touch? Every day, millions of people sense an undercurrent of spiritual activity, an invisible battlefield of forces at war. Some dismiss these perceptions as imagination, while others cling to them as essential truths. The idea that an invisible world exists beyond our senses has captivated humanity for centuries. Countless cultures and faiths speak of supernatural beings, good and evil, battling for influence over our lives. To some, it's little more than folklore. Yet others swear they've experienced unexplainable phenomena that point to a dynamic realm of angels, demons, miracles, and answered prayers. In ancient scriptures, we find repeated hints of cosmic conflicts playing out on a plane far above the ordinary. While many approach these texts with skepticism, those who believe argue that ignoring them could mean missing out on vital spiritual truths. Rumors abound. Some say these accounts are just metaphors for inner struggles, while others claim they depict actual, ongoing wars in heaven. Two notable figures illustrate the tension between skepticism and faith in remarkable ways. Moses, a leader of the Israelites, and Daniel, a prophet who lived during exile, present startling stories of how simple outward actions like raising arms or abstaining from certain foods appeared to bring about supernatural interventions. If you've ever felt that your prayers or beliefs went unheard, wait until you hear how these age-old accounts might offer a powerful key to unlocking unseen realities. Yet the question remains, could the same spiritual principles outlined in these ancient narratives apply to people living in our fast-paced modern world? Or are they relics best left in a bygone era? As we move forward, keep an open mind. What you discover could challenge how you view the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual. But that's only the beginning. One of the most intriguing biblical accounts revolves around Moses and the Amalekites. Picture a fierce battlefield in the desert, with the Israelite army clashing swords against a relentless enemy. Moses stands on a hillside overlooking the fray, but he's not merely watching. He's holding his hands high toward the sky. According to the text, every moment those hands remain lifted, the Israelites gain ground. When fatigue sets in and Moses lowers his arms, the tide of the battle turns in favor of the Amalekites. It's easy to dismiss this as a colorful story, yet imagine the tension in that moment. Soldiers risking their lives look up to see their leader straining to keep his arms up, day turning to dusk, sweat pouring down his brow. Some might say it's a psychological boost for the troops. Seeing Moses' unwavering posture might have emboldened them. Others believe there's far more going on, that angels or invisible forces responded to that physical act of surrender to the divine. In the Bible, Moses isn't instructed to gather advanced weapons or craft new strategies. He's simply told to lift his arms as a sign of obedience. This reveals a perplexing notion. Perhaps certain battles aren't won by brute strength or clever tactics alone, but by participating in a mysterious spiritual partnership. Doubters scoff, asking, how could raised arms possibly influence the outcome of a war? Yet the account insists that the moment Moses dropped his arms, the Israelites began to lose. Could it be that a seemingly small physical gesture unlocked extraordinary help from above? Regardless of one's belief, there's no denying the magnetic pull of such a story. Skeptics point to mythology or question the historical details. Believers see it as a vivid reminder that tangible actions can shift intangible realities. For everyone else, it's a puzzle piece that could hint at deeper truths. But what if Moses' dramatic stance isn't the only example? Let's keep going. There's another account that might take this idea to an entirely new level. We live in an age dominated by technology and logic. Information is literally at our fingertips, and many people rely on science alone to explain the events of life. This mindset has benefits, no doubt, but it can also close us off to possibilities that don't fit neatly into data or rational frameworks. Miraculous healings, angelic visitations, or battles won by lifted arms sound more like fantasy than fact. According to various polls, a significant portion of the global population remains uncertain about spiritual matters. They lean on the idea that if something can't be measured, it must not exist. So when stories surface of individuals stepping into a dimension of supernatural favor, after an act like fasting or physically lifting their hands in worship, critics are quick to label these accounts as emotional hype or mere coincidences. At the same time, in many faith communities, experiences of healing, divine protection, or sudden breakthroughs are reported with surprising frequency. While some may be exaggerated, a number of them defy easy explanation. Could there be a genuine link between physical obedience and spiritual release, as the ancient texts claim, or is it all wishful thinking? These questions generate lively debates that stretch far beyond religious circles. Still, one cannot ignore the parallels between Moses' story and the modern thirst for something beyond the ordinary. Everyone at one point or another craves meaning or breakthrough in seemingly hopeless circumstances. Maybe the accounts of invisible wars and physical acts of faith remain relevant after all. And if you think Moses' example was remarkable, wait until you see how Daniel's 21-day fast draws back the curtain on spiritual warfare in a shockingly tangible way. And what happens next might just change everything. Moving forward in time, we encounter Daniel, a young man living in exile under a powerful empire. He's known for his unwavering devotion, praying multiple times a day and refusing to eat certain foods offered by the royal palace. Yet Daniel's most famous moment unfolds when he enters a 21-day period of fasting. He abstains from pleasant bread and other delicacies, choosing instead a humble diet of vegetables and water. On the surface, it seems like a mere personal choice, perhaps even a demonstration of discipline, but the ancient record claims that during these 3 weeks, an invisible battle erupted in the spiritual realm. An angel finally appears to Daniel, explaining that he had been dispatched with a response to Daniel's prayers from the moment Daniel began fasting. But an opposing force, described as the Prince of Persia, blocked the angel for 21 days. Reinforcements, led by the Archangel Michael, were needed to break through this obstruction. Skeptics might roll their eyes at talk of angels locked in a cosmic struggle, but the significance lies not just in the existence of angels, but in the correlation to Daniel's physical obedience. The story implies that had Daniel not persisted in fasting and prayer, the breakthrough might never have come. Like Moses' lifted arms, Daniel's diet was a tangible act, one he chose to maintain despite hunger pangs and the daily temptations of palace fare. Critics sometimes accuse believers of reading too much into these narratives, seeing spiritual connections where none exist. Yet countless individuals claim that when they too commit to certain forms of fasting or prayer, doors open and obstacles vanish in ways they can't logically explain. Are these instances all coincidences, or do they hint at deeper principles built into the fabric of reality? Daniel's story might be ancient, but its implications reverberate in countless testimonies around the world today. Yet there's an even more striking angle to this. One of the most provocative ideas surrounding these stories is that of favor. Many faith traditions teach that a higher power loves humanity unconditionally, regardless of merit or accomplishment. But favor, they argue, is something distinct. It can increase when a person demonstrates faith and obedience. In simpler terms, love is freely given, while favor often grows in response to specific acts of devotion or sacrifice. Looking back at Moses, his obedience to lift his arms wasn't about earning God's love. Instead, it positioned him to receive help in the critical moment of battle. Likewise, Daniel wasn't trying to bribe the divine by avoiding pleasant foods. He was humbling himself, realigning his priorities. According to the narrative, this physical sacrifice triggered a chain reaction in the spiritual realm, resulting in the arrival of angelic assistance. This distinction can fuel heated debates. Some charge that emphasizing favor turns spirituality into a transaction, like paying for a service. Yet others point out that relationships, even in human terms, involve dynamics of trust, loyalty, and expression. For instance, a parent's love for their child is unconditional, but the added trust and privileges the child might enjoy can hinge on how responsible or loving the child proves to be in return. In these biblical accounts, Moses and Daniel appear to tap into extraordinary manifestations of divine favor, not by grand public displays or manipulative tactics, but by simple, ongoing fidelity to instructions they believe came from above. The result? Angelic reinforcements, military victory, and revelations of future events. If that's not enough to raise eyebrows, consider how critics in their times and ours react to such claims. Some see it as spiritual wisdom, others see it as delusion. But the challenges to faith don't end here. Even for those open to the idea of unseen battles and spiritual breakthroughs, there's a massive stumbling block: unbelief. According to many teachings, unbelief creeps in when we drift away from consistent communion with God. Instead of feeding on prayer, scripture, or reflective worship, we become engrossed in day-to-day affairs. Our time and thoughts get swallowed up by endless distractions, from social media scrolling to career pressures and entertainment binges. As unbelief grows, faith weakens. Doubts invade, whispered by the voice that says, these miracles are just coincidences or illusions. Then there's another issue: over-attachment to worldly desires. Whether it's constant material pursuits or obsession with status, these fixations can clog our spiritual sensitivity, making it difficult to sense or believe in anything beyond the physical. Moses and Daniel's stories highlight how physical acts of obedience, like raising hands or fasting, push back against this cycle. They reorient our focus away from fleeting pleasures and back towards something eternal. For believers, this process is not about punishing the body or earning divine acceptance. It's about clearing the fog of skepticism, realigning with deeper truths, and standing ready for the unexpected. When we strip away unbelief and over-attachment, we often find ourselves more receptive to solutions, breakthroughs, and guidance that once seemed out of reach. Still, it's not always a smooth road. Devoting oneself to prayer and fasting can attract criticism even from friends and family. Some may question the logic. Why suffer when you can just trust that everything will work out? Or isn't it enough to be a good person internally? Yet the ancient texts maintain that sometimes external actions matter immensely. We can't help but wonder, if these acts mattered in a time of exiled prophets and desert battles, do they hold the same weight in our modern high-tech era? But wait, there's more to the story. It's easy to regard the stories of Moses and Daniel as relics from a mystical past, but fascinatingly, many contemporary accounts echo their themes. Devout individuals around the globe share personal testimonies of how fasting brought them clarity in decision-making, how persistent prayer led to sudden financial provision, or how raising hands in worship seemed to diffuse storms of anxiety or depression. In some extreme cases, people even report physical healings that baffle doctors. Yet these modern claims inevitably spark controversy. Some quickly assume confirmation bias. If you're already inclined to believe in miracles, you'll interpret any positive outcome as divine intervention. Others suspect charlatanism, especially when high-profile figures promise miraculous breakthroughs, sometimes with a hefty price tag. Indeed, spiritual exploitation is real, and discerning individuals caution against blindly embracing every spectacular tale. On the flip side, even scientists have begun exploring how practices like fasting affect the body. There's growing evidence that strategic fasting can reset metabolic processes and might have mental benefits like clearer focus or a calmer disposition. Does that prove a spiritual dimension is at work, or is it merely biology? Opinions differ, but it's intriguing that something as simple as disciplined eating can have profound psychological and physical effects. For believers, this only underscores the spiritual significance behind tangible, physical steps of faith. Controversy aside, the sheer volume of testimonies can be compelling. For every viral hoax, there may be dozens of humble, lesser-known accounts of transformed lives. Perhaps the question isn't whether these stories are real, but whether we're willing to consider that the boundary between the physical and spiritual might be thinner than we think. And that sets the stage for an urgent call to look beyond our assumptions. Because the journey doesn't end here. By now, you might be wondering if this all sounds too dramatic or too ancient to be relevant. Yet even the most skeptical minds often acknowledge that humans are holistic beings, blending body, mind, and spirit. If we accept that principle, then it's possible our physical choices can indeed stir profound spiritual responses, especially when combined with sincere faith. 1. Consider simple acts of faith. If you're facing a major hurdle, be it health, finances, or relationships, try dedicating a short period to fasting or extended prayer. Even adopting a posture of raised hands during prayer can serve as a symbol of surrender and focus. While results vary, many find renewed strength and clarity they never thought possible. 2. Balance the physical and spiritual. Avoid the trap of thinking it's all about the spiritual realm while neglecting practical responsibilities. Moses still had to organize his troops, and Daniel continued serving faithfully in a royal court. Neither used their spiritual commitments as an excuse to abandon common sense. 3. Stay humble, stay watchful. True faith doesn't blossom overnight. It grows through consistent small steps. Whether it's skipping a meal to meditate and pray or setting aside daily time to kneel in reflection, each act deepens your connection with what you believe is higher truth. Just remember that humility and sincerity matter far more than perfect technique. 4. Seek trustworthy counsel. If you're new to these ideas, don't journey alone. Find friends, mentors, or communities with experience in dedicated prayer and fasting. Discuss your questions openly. Healthy skepticism can be a safeguard against misleading doctrines or manipulative leaders. Through it all, the stories of Moses and Daniel serve as timeless reminders that physical obedience and spiritual power often go hand in hand. While the precise mechanics may remain mysterious, the principle resonates across centuries and cultures. When we offer genuine devotion through tangible actions, it can unlock breakthroughs that defy our expectations. In a world flooded with distractions, skepticism, and instant gratification, the accounts of Moses and Daniel stand as revolutionary signposts. They warn us not to underestimate the profound impact that small, consistent acts of obedience can have on the unseen fabric of our lives. Whether lifting hands on a battlefield hilltop or choosing to forego favorite foods for a season, these physical gestures reverberate in ways that even modern science has yet to fully grasp. But here's the final takeaway. It's not about trying to bribe or manipulate a higher power with rituals. Instead, it's about aligning yourself, body, mind, and spirit, with what you believe to be the ultimate source of help and guidance. In that alignment, many testify to witnessing miracles, big and small, that baffle conventional logic. So if you've ever sensed you were on the brink of a breakthrough, or if you've questioned why some prayers go unanswered, perhaps it's time to examine the role of physical obedience. Could a simple action, like giving up a few meals, lifting your hands in worship, or bowing on your knees in reverence, be the missing piece to your spiritual puzzle? Only you can decide. But before you dismiss the notion outright, remember how Moses' lifted arms shifted the tide of war, and how Daniel's 21-day fast caused an angelic revelation to finally break through. These aren't just relics of an outdated faith. They're enduring examples of how even in our complex modern world, physical acts of devotion might release power beyond our wildest expectations. If you're ready for change, dare to take a step of faith, however small, and see what unfolds in the unseen realm. You just might find that the line between heaven and earth is thinner than you ever imagined. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into faith, mystery, and the explosive potential of physical acts in the spiritual realm. Stay inspired, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the simplest gestures open the greatest doors of possibility. Until next time, keep your heart open and your spirit ready for surprises that might lie just beyond the veil of the ordinary. Always fast and pray, for God listens, and He answers prayers.